Hello and welcome to the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show. I'm your host, Nick McGowan, and on this show, my guests and I unpack the stories that shape us and the lives that we lead on our path to self-mastery. Today on the show, we have Troy Stevens. Troy has an incredible way with people and seems to always have a great story to help someone understand a topic, a point, or a situation. He's currently a VP at a tech company in Florida and has been in tech since getting out of the Marines in the early 2000s. We discuss the wisdom he's learned exploring over the years being in the military and tech space about how to best connect with people and manage people. And he shares some funny stories and insights throughout. So let's not wait any longer. Let the games begin. Troy, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
I am great. Buddy, this has been a long-ass time coming. I know this is basically our second swing at this. We were going to do this a couple of weeks ago, but things have just been crazy for you. So thank you for jumping on, even in the midst of the craziness that I know we've talked about before we hit record.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to be here, man. Appreciate the opportunity for the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, dude, I always love having conversation with you. And typically you and I are having conversation with some sort of adult beverage in our hand or something else and enjoying those things. Last time we actually hung out, we grabbed some tacos, had great conversation, then ended up on the back porch of my place, just drinking a couple beers and getting into deeper conversation that actually led to us doing this episode. So Troy, why don't you kick us off? Tell us what you do for a living and one thing that most people don't know about you.
I'm a VP of customer experience, with tech companies. That's what I've done with my career since I've been out of the military, basically. And one thing that most people don't know until they get to know me a little bit better is that I am terrified of bears.
So, why?
Well, the truth is, it comes up. Started when I was a kid. I don't know. Bears scare me. But as an adult, I can put some words around the feelings, and bears are bullshit. I mean, if you think about it, like a giant cat or the big lion, right? What are they going to do? They're going to come at you. They're going to jump at your throat, rip your throat out, and you're dead, right? What was the movie Revenant? Showed every person on the planet, any person who ever watches that movie, why you should be terrified of bears. Because bears don't want to kill you. They want to maim you, they want to break you, and they want to just leave you in a hobbled mess so they have a toy until you eventually die. So that sounds terrible. It sounds just like torture, bears. So, but as a kid, I would see bears at a zoo, and this undescribed fear of just heart rate kicks up, and just scary. And I've seen a couple in real life on motorcycle trips up to Yellowstone and stuff when I lived in Utah. And just seeing them, I'm like, nope. I instantly can't enjoy my life.
So that had to have come from somewhere. It's not like you popped out of the womb and you're like, hi, Mom, fuck bears. Bears need to go.
That's what I mean. Like, I feel like, like a phobia that anybody might have, right? So anything that I've met people, you have a phobia of spiders. Right? Spiders are fairly innocuous. There are some that are poisonous and they're bad, but 99% of the spiders you run into are not going to be a thing, but people are terrified of them. So unfortunately, I don't have a unique story where like, hey, I was at a zoo, I fell into a bear enclosure and one beat the crap out of me. My dad had to jump in and save me. Nothing like that. That would definitely do it. I wish I had a good story behind it. It's also why not a ton of people know that, because I don't have a good way of describing or explaining it. And so it's just, there's just something about them. Mean, now where some of my friends have taken this to an extreme is a good buddy of mine got one of those once in a lifetime opportunities to go Kodiak bear hunting in Alaska. Was able to, after their 10th day, was able to get a bear and ended up having it stuffed and had it delivered. It took a year. And then it got delivered. We'd hang out all the time. Got delivered right in the midst of COVID, and so we're having house parties, not really going out. And then he gets this Kodiak bear delivered even stuffed. There's a couple pictures I have next to it, and I've had to use it to face my fear but I stopped going to their house. We stopped being friends for like 2 or 3 months. I didn't go over there anymore. And then if I did, I would always just go around the back of their house. We'd hang out by the pool and I wouldn't go inside.
Man,
Something about bears, they're just terrifying.
I mean, when you talk about them just kind of kicking your ass, kicking you around, and just manipulating your body parts, that's pretty dark. Like right up front.
That's an interesting way to put it, but for sure, right? And I think it's, I can kind of correlate it to my desire to, I guess, say control, right? Being able to control my environment, and bears are just one of those things. If there's something big that just comes and kills you, you're dead, and there's nothing you can do about it. But a bear, they're most of the time they're not just going to aggressive. They're going to show themselves. They're going to be like, hey, this is my space. And it's not like you can be like, cool, I'll leave your space. They're like, nope, I'm going to come and I'm going to destroy you. I'm going to beat you up and take you back to my cave. Like that's, I think another good movie, Without a Paddle. While they took the funny side of it where Revenant took the evil side of it, they took the fun. It's still terrible. Bears are just the worst.
Bears kind of open up the rest of this conversation, because that thing, whatever that phobia, whatever that problem is, you think about your buddy who has no problem with it at all, to the point where he went and killed one and was like, well, I want you to stuff shit into that and then send it to me in 12 months.
He wants to go back go with the spear. So he went rifle, and he's like, or no, it was bow. He went with a bow, and he's like, honestly, I even feel like that was cheating. And he's like, I think if I'm going to go face a bear again, he's like, I need to go with the spear. And that's as close to, and I'm like, man, if you're going to be a real man, go bare hands, like, no way.
Don't get your buddy killed.
He brought a bear home. Of course, he deserves it. No, it's, but yeah, no, there's, like anything else, right? A bear you can translate that into any fear or any type of thing that holds us back from. I don't think my fear of bears have really held me back from a lot of activities I want to do.
Sure.
But,
well, you also live in Florida, where bears don't normally come out and hang out.
I thought that. And then we're cruising around, and there's signs. You get up to like just past Newport Richie, you go up to Witchy Watchy in that area. Black bears. There's black bears.
Guess that kind of makes sense. I'm used to like the beachy area, Tampa, Clearwater, where we have bears, but they usually hang out in clubs and hit on people.
Right, and that's also why I live in St. Petersburg. Right, that I want to be there. There's not downtown St. Pete does not have a lot of black bears running around.
No,
a couple Bears fans, but that's about it. And there's only like 2.
Exactly. They're all converting to Tampa Bay Bucks fans at this point.
That's right. Who is it? I mean, come on.
I mean, I'm a Philly fan, and I hated Tom Brady for the longest time, only for the reason that he took a Super Bowl away from us. He really didn't. They just beat our asses, and Donovan was kind of drunk, and T.O. was a diva. But that's a different story.
And he was on point. I mean, look, when the GOAT shows up, you want a bear, but you didn't have one.
You know what? But let's think about it this way. Here's the saving grace for Tom Brady. Like it fucking matters to him.
Yeah.
The guy who beat him, the team, but the leader of that team who beat him, his name was Nick. So I'm good with that.
Yeah, that works. And my dad's from Pennsylvania, right? So I grew up a Steelers fan. I grew up, it's Pittsburgh Pirates. It's all Pennsylvania love, but and I've lived so many different places now. I've lived in Seattle, and I was down in LA, and I've been out to, I've lived in Nevada, which now they've got the Raiders.
Now they do.
And I lived in Baltimore. Now, being a Steelers fan, living in Baltimore, living in inner city Baltimore, that was a rough time. There was one time I walked out with a jersey, and that night my car got broken into.
Of course.
So it was, and I lived, I don't know, a mile away from the stadium downtown. Mm-hmm. so it was, loved a lot of, and being down here, being, with the Bucks, it's fanfare kind of fun, but, it's black and yellow. Let's go Steelers.
Screw your black and yellow. We're bleeding green here. So on a different topic, let's actually jump back a little bit. Give us some context. So you've lived in different areas. You're now in Florida. You've been here a number of years. But take us back a little bit. Where did you come from? How were you raised? And basically what led you to where you're at now?
Oh man, whew, going back. All right, so I'm born in Utah. At the time, my dad was still in the military, so he was Army. He was in the artillery, um, airborne artillery. Still one of the funniest things I ever thought of. Just drop a cannon out of a plane and then you just jump out with it. Wherever you land, set up and start blowing stuff up, right? Um, so I was born in Utah. My dad was stationed in Alabama. So I was in Utah for like 2 weeks. My mom was visiting family. Went to Fort Rucker, Alabama. There till I was 6, and then back to Utah. I'm the baby of 6 kids, and that has its relevance a little bit, I think, in my life story. One being the baby, we get all the we get all the love and all the attention, according to my siblings, right? um, but really, it's the unique perspective that you get coming from a large family. Utah is predominantly LDS, and my parents at the time when I was born were active in that religion, LDS Mormon Church. But by the time I was, I don't know, 4 or 5, they kind of stopped going to church. So the whole religious aspect of the culture that I grew up in was kind of shielded in a sense. My parents always raised us, and the conversation was, it doesn't matter what someone believes, where they're from, as long as they're not trying to cause you harm or trying to hurt you, then love, accept them, and move forward. And it was an interesting perspective to be raised with, because when you're raised, I don't know if you spent a lot of time with heavily Christian based groups that believe that what and how they do is right. Acceptance is usually one of the most challenging things to get. um, but no, so grew up there, grew up in Utah, and I've always just had kind of a gypsy soul.
Hmm.
Watching my older siblings kind of go through life. Oldest brother's about 10 years, so that's the spread. So watching them go into the traditional world of, you go to college, it was go on a mission, come home, go to college, get married, have babies, put money into a 401k, buy a house, live there for 30 years, pay it down, and retire. And that's kind of, my dad grew up in the sticks of Pennsylvania. And so he grew up without money, and he had kind of worked his way through life and challenges to kind of get into that, middle class kind of space. And he bought a house and worked his job, clocked in Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And Saturday he took care of his yard. Sunday he watched football. Monday he went back to work. So it's that present absentee dad kind of scenario. So just, I would say, watching that and watching my siblings go through that, one of the things I used to say as a kid all the time is that, grown-ups always look miserable. It's as the responsibility kind of stacks on, and you've got all of these things that you have to take care of, all this responsibility. It weighs on you as a person, and especially as a man, right? We're still raised in that concept of, no matter what you do, you have to be a provider. You have to provide. You have to take care of it. It is your role, your responsibility to be the person in as whatever family you go on to create, that you have to take care of everything. And so it was seeing that, just seeing people miserable. It just didn't speak to my soul. So my wanderlust, right, was very, very, very prevalent as a kid, and I've always been insanely outgoing. So very much the detriment. If I was born now, I would be kidnapped instantly. Like, because I would just wander off with people. There were times we go on family vacations and I would just be gone and I'd disappear, and I always found my way back, but I would just take off. Like, you guys seem interesting, and I would just walk and listen to their stories and talk to people. And my mom's chasing me around. Um,
You still do
that, I mean,
that.
yeah, I know, I do. Yeah, now I'm just a little bit bigger, and I can keep
It's
myself.
easier to see you. Where's a 6'5" guy? It's talking to somebody.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a lot taller. I'm like, hey, I'm over here. But yeah, yeah, doing that, living in a place. Utah is such a unique place. Tell people for years it was a bubble that was anywhere from 2 to 5 years behind kind of the rest of the world. And I go back to visit. I got a lot of family there. Feels pretty much the same way. Get there and it's almost like you just kind of drop back a couple years in time. And it didn't really sink in until I started moving and leaving the state. But since I've been 18, I've had 60. I'm in my 61st address right now.
Jeez.
And an example, I mean, I've been in Florida for 5 years now, and we've had eight addresses, and we're gearing up here in the next couple of months. We'll probably be moving again. So,
Yeah.
moved around a lot. I mean, I haven't really touched base on a lot, but I don't know, as we talk about, if I think to expand on my life, it just, there's 40 years to unpack, right?
Sure. Yeah. It's
I
like,
would say one of
where
the
do you
key
pick?
things, though, yeah, I'll say one of the key things. I will say this, that something that was said as a kid, um, sitting on the bed of a truck, hanging out with a friend in a driveway. Um, it's and we'd smoked a little bit as a kid, and I still remember just saying, all the old people that I've talked to, even then, and you talk to people now, it's what do they regret when they're dying? What's their regret? And and people, you hear the phrase like you regret all the things you didn't do. Um, and and at the end of the day, for me, it was I didn't want to be 60, 70, 80, 90 and not have a story.
Hmm.
So I had kind of made a promise to myself as a kid that I was even watching, at 13 and 14, I was seeing my 24-year-old brother going through school to get his PhD, and just he didn't look happy. And I'd try to talk to him like, well, hey, what did you do? Like, what's going on? Like, you're doing this super cool PhD stuff, like doing the super cool stuff. Tell me about it. Oh no, it's just a thing. It sucks. So I made a promise that I'd be kind of like a yes man. I would want to live life to be able to have a story to tell. And at the end, and then just in the core of that was, but also try my best to be a nice person to people. Like, have a good story to tell that has a positive message, or that not anything like, oh, we're going to go change the world, but it's try to do no harm, try to leave things better than where they started, and when they came into your existence. And that's my goal.
And I love that you naturally just like to talk to people and want to learn and hear other people's stories. You and I joke about the stories that we tell because we know that
Mhm.
stories help you sell things. They help you kind of get the point across a lot easier. Psychologically, it just makes sense to people. They eat things in stories. They're like, oh, I get this. Great. I can run with this thing. I love
Yep.
that you are one of those people that can just talk to anybody and you're open to have those conversations. My brother's the same way, where he'll just kind of wander off and he's like, hey, I met these people. They do these things. And there are a lot of people in the world that don't ever allow themselves to be able to do that.
Right.
Like they don't even look up when people are walking by, where you
Sure.
typically look to see like, hey, is somebody looking at me? Are we going to fucking talk? Are we going to have a conversation?
I know that you have lived all the years of this life, that you have been on this planet, and so you have stories. You have stories, and you have perspectives and things that I could not fathom or understand, and I want to hear 'em, because I think I'd love it. I mean, a fun one. This is a fun story that happened recently, right? I don't know. I mean, this is just we're getting a hot tub for one of our rental properties, and found a hot tub. Someone was giving it away for free. Reach out to the person, and like anything else in Facebook land, right? You put something and you get 1,000 messages, right? This guy just kind of randomly scrolls through and I think he picked my message, because my Facebook profile has some like whiskey barrels in the back that I had bought one day and like turned them into dartboards, and I had a question that wasn't just like, hey, is it available? Right? I just asked if it was 110 or 220. And the short of this story is, go to pick it up. 2 different groups failed to come and help me get it, that I like contracted that to show up. While talking to the guy, he's having a barbecue event that happened last Saturday that we got invited to. That was like his birthday party. So Claudia and I smoked a brisket and a pork shoulder and went and showed up at the party, and just 70 people we don't know at a meat fest that that this guy has been doing. He's called, deemed his meat fest that he's been doing for 7 years for his birthday, and made a new friend. And so they're planning on coming out to the beach with us in one of these days. And it's just, and the stories that we got to listen to while we were there were fantastic. We met a bunch of people that, just good people. That guy does tile work, so he's probably going to end up doing some tile work on our remodel or a bathroom, and
Awesome.
from picking up a free hot tub.
Yeah. But it's really from you stepping out and doing that thing. So one of the things about the show, and the people who listen to this show, they're like you and I. They're ambitious, they're doing things, but they're working to be better at what they're doing. And in certain ways, they're working to not be as bad as they were the day before. So I think that's one of the big lessons for people to be able to take, is just take that first step. Some of it's just the action of going to do that thing. But what is it, if you had to kind of encapsulate that and share that with somebody? What sort of advice would you give to somebody to be able to kind of have that skill?
I some of the stuff, I'll relate, I relate a lot with the question. My wife is immigrant from Mexico, and came here after college. Wasn't she's being my age, being 40, computers. She didn't see a computer until she got to college. Just it's where she grew up. And she got her degree in industrial engineering, and just people have never really been her forte. It's never been, she just, people are, it's always just no. And we talk about it a lot as a skill or a thing. And maybe if I boil it down to a skill, it would just be to give it a chance to be open. The truth is that everybody, well, I can't say everybody, right? The platitudes of everybody, but most people want to connect. Most people want to tell a story, be heard, be valued, know that their thoughts and their existence matters. And a big way that happens is somebody listens. So it's when you think, oh, I should say hi, I don't want to. And then all of the secondary thoughts come in as to why you shouldn't, and they don't care. There's no reason. And all those questions come out. If just speak and say hi, then your brain has to shut down all of that second guessing. And so those are one of the exercises that I've gone through with actually my wife in that concept of making friends is, and I would say, well, as listeners, we all know as an adult, making friends is just weird, right? It's a weird experience. It's because you're just like, yeah, you've lived for, however many years you've been alive. Like, why, we should just hang out, But that idea just to open up and say hi and be open to a response. And if you're proven right, then guess what? You just get validated that you were right. But when you're proven wrong, you get to hear a story. And that's and from that connects to me, that connects to almost all people as well, is to hear a story. Hey, how's it going? But no, for real, like, how's your day? Just one crazy thing about the day. And people are like, oh, I don't know. Well, here's what's going on. And some people be like, I don't know you. I don't want to talk to you, right? And I wouldn't say necessarily to just go running up to strangers on the street. But when you have that, I should say hi. Do it. And that's a part of that, that first step, right? It's kind of the, building habits, all the extra. You can read so much about how to win friends and influence people and do this and do that. I always just boil it back down to the core of everybody is actually pretty cool. And so like they are interesting, and you're an interesting person. You're interesting. I'm interesting. Everybody is. We've all seen just crazy, crazy, crazy things. So say hi and see what happens. And I think that more people will be surprised at the more of the kindness. And then I can take it into when you're getting thrown a ton of hate, kill them with kindness. Right? I put a post on Facebook today that I've just got a slew of hate about, and from it, talked to two people who are now trying to do business together. They're like, "Oh, you suck. You're this, and this, and that. You're the worst kind of person." I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool. What do you do for a living?" And so I don't know. Like it's being open, and I think that's an extreme level of it. But boiling it all back down to that one piece of advice is be open to your own curiosity and say hi when you think about it.
Yeah. That's such an awesome thing, man. I actually I subscribe to what I call the rule of 3, that if something pops into my mind, like you should go talk to this person. The first time I might be like, meh, I don't want to. Brush it off. Second time it comes back, I'm like, I know you came here before, but I told you no. And then third time it comes back, I'm like, all right, I should do something with this. I kind of think of that as a little bit of a God nod, but that's whatever way we want to look at it. You know, if something comes back to you a couple times, that's a reason for you to go do it. And it seems like you've actually done that a lot, to the point, maybe not that specific 3, but you've done that to the point where now it's just part of your body and it's ingrained, where you're looking for those things.
Right, and I would say I heard a quote the other day, and I unfortunately I meant to actually go write it down and note who it came from. So this is not from me, but it talks about like a good way to look at the human mind is, it's just a forest, and the habits, when we go through thought, electricity, it tries to go through the path of least resistance. And if you think about a forest, if you go hiking, you think about getting out into nature, if you go, you can see where there's a clear path, and then there's just forest. We're creating new habits. What we're deciding to do is to kind of cut through the habits. Don't take the road always traveled. Don't take that path that is something that we know we need to fix because we know where that path goes. We've got to start cutting a new path. And if we only go there once or twice, what happens, right? The path gets overgrown. But if we continually go there, then it becomes the path. And the scary part about it is you don't know for sure where it goes. But I do think that the habit I have formed the habit of being open to people. So I still have my reservations, especially now as an older man. You can't just go randomly talking to everybody, right? As a kid, it was a lot easier. I just, hey, and then it was more like it was weird for them to be talking to me, not the other way around. But no, it is to form that habit of being comfortable with that stage of uncomfortable, but then that uncomfortable becomes comfortable. I'd rather ask the question, say hi, and have the chance of a story than not say anything and know for fact that I won't get one.
Yeah. You never know who you're going to connect with. You never know what's behind that face. Somebody could have a story that just really relates to you, but if you never actually step into that conversation, you have no idea. And I think what you're talking about there is like the reps, where like you do that so many times that it's just part of what you do. But it's interesting because there's also, like, I remember being in your office, because Troy and I used to work together. I was in your office, and at one point you're like, yo, dude, I can't do what you do. You take all these no's and just bullshit with sales, and I don't want to do any of that. I was like, really? Because you basically do that constantly anyway, just by talking to people. So it's some of the story that we tell ourselves of like what you do and what you don't want to do. Even back to the bears. Like if I told you, yo, Troy, I need you to go into this room. There's a bear in there. You'd be like, fuck you. I'm not going in there.
It's not going to happen.
But what if it's a little stuffed animal bear, a little teddy bear? Would you?
Nope.
It might be a different story. But just knowing at that point, like what it actually was, if you knew beforehand, that's a teddy bear, you'd be like, fuck off. Don't screw with me. Whatever. I'll go grab your stupid teddy bear and throw it at you.
Yeah, I'll throw your teddy bear at you. My heart rate might go up a little bit, but I'll still throw a teddy bear at you.
Yeah, but if you don't know that, you don't know. So it's the fear of the unknown. And I think that's what stops a lot of people. Even just
For
talking to
sure.
people in general. So, look, as we get older and we try to make friends, that in and of itself can be weird. But now people are working hybrid. They're working from home, but sort of at the office. And some people are changing
Yep.
jobs. So you're relatively new at the position you're in, but you have new people that are coming through. And how do you guys manage that? And how do you help your team kind of manage their mindset through that?
Ultimately, as I go throughout, as I actually look back on my career and some of the things that I've tried to tackle, and my perception and my perspective has always been, when I say the cliche thing of people first. But for me, what it means is that I really am interested in the story of people. So everybody is motivated differently, right? And when it comes to work and it comes to what we do, and I've had positions, when we work together, where I take over a team of people that have worked together, right? They've worked together for years. In some cases, I have individuals that work for me right now that have worked for the company for 18 years. They have been here their entire adult life, first job out of college and work, and this is where they've been. So their entire work experience has always been here, and the people that have come in and out of it. My belief, my unique perspective, which maybe not unique, but is that every person, right? We live in just the world and the story in the movie that we're in. And so most of my time and how I motivate people is by getting to know them, because there's no way I could walk in, and I've seen this and I've been part of it, where I can walk in and say, look, here's the 10 rules. You follow these 10 rules. You clock in every day. You do these 10 things, and that's what you get done. Giddy up. If you don't do it, that's fine. Here's the review. Check mark off. No raise for you, and get the hell out. Right. That is one way of trying to lead something. My way takes a lot longer, because I spend a lot of time just spending time getting to know people. I have a couch in my office just
Hmm.
so people can come in, sit down, be comfortable, and talk and get involved. And hearing what their story is where, throughout my years of managing, leading people, and again, probably a unique thing, being able to lead people in a war where decisions were being made where someone might have to go and die, is a lot easier to make a decision where someone might have to go out and send an email or get yelled at by a customer.
Way
And
different.
so way different scenario, but you can still tackle each of those things with grace, because just because that might have been my experience doesn't mean that that's that person's experience. But my comfort level with being able to communicate and listen to the story is a lot higher because of those experiences in my world.
Yeah.
But listening to what people have to deal with, what they're dealing with in their home life, and how they perceive the work that they're doing, allows me to kind of cut through and communicate the way that they need to hear a story, and then tell stories that allow them to hear what they need to do, so they can kind of catch the vision and that excitement. Also, a lot of people who have worked for me in the past and I've worked with will also tell you that I'm also the first person to be like, hey, you need to not be here anymore, because you're not living up to your potential. You're choosing to come to a place that, yeah, it's obvious that you're not happy. Let me help you find a place that's different than here. It's scary, it's new, but let me help you find that new place, because you have at least here, for a fact you're unhappy. There, you might have a chance. And it's not that the grass is always greener, but if you're playing in the mud, go look for some grass, right? And that's just kind of how I've tackled all of my leadership,
Mhm.
is doing everything I can to try to understand. And obviously I can say it now. I could probably go through and find a bunch of past employees and kind of put that out on my resume as my references of, I really genuinely want people to know. And with that, you find the right way to motivate people, because
Mhm.
everybody's motivated different. Once you know how to motivate somebody, then it's easy to go through and say, okay, here's the project we're going to work on, and you learn how to work with all those personalities. Um, and it's kind of to your point earlier when I said, going through all the no's. There isn't. It becomes easier for me in the space in the customer experience world, that it's not that I won't get yelled at or I won't get people to say no, but I get a lot more time to get to know a person and get to hear their stories and eliminate the walls that way than as much as you do in like that hunter sales role, right? Where it's I've got to quickly get in and do something, and I'm more of it's like, hey, here's that long game, and that's my perception, right, from a customer experience to a sales, because I'm told all the time, oh, do sales, I'll do upsales, right?
I think that's where you and I are akin in certain ways, where we really like to be able to settle in and get to know somebody and have those conversations. I've shifted that mindset, at least in the company that we worked with, at least in my division, to have them understand that it's not just a dial for dollar sort of situation. It's a relationship thing. You need to build the relationship with these people. You need to be real with them. There's certain people where I'm like, yo, I appreciate where you're at. This is not going to be the right fit for you. Let me help you find something different. Similar to like what you've done with different employees. At the same time, if you can connect and you can actually speak with those people and get to a real level. I've seen you've done that with actual employees before. We were joking a little bit before we hit record about sitting in your office, shooting the shit, and somebody coming in and be like, hey, I want to ask you about this thing. And you're like, let me tell you a story. And they're like, I just fucking want this answer. You're like, but here's the story. Yeah. And
I'm
that
like,
story,
I know you do, but if I tell you, yeah.
That story has always led them to figure out, oh, I need to do this thing because of what you said in the story. And you're like, yeah, so what about this? And it would just lead off to them going, oh, I got it. Thanks. And it's almost like they came up with it on their own. I think that's really because you knew those people. Like you actually sat down when you got that job to figure out, who the fuck are you? Why do you work here? What's your deal?
Why do you work here? What motivates you? What is your real life like? Right? There's this work life, and you'll hear me say it a lot. I mean, probably when we work together, you probably heard me say it a lot, where it's leverage technology to get back to being people, because we need, despite all the direction that we're going, validation, connection, and everything that all the technology we're building, the idea is to try to build connection and communication. And while it misses the mark in a lot of cases, right? That's the goal. That's the dream. That's the connection. We want to connect. And sometimes it's that challenge of, put technology down, and I'm the same person. I'm on my phone all day, right? I remember when cell phones came out. I remember when text messaging first was created, and I got a job for a place so I could get a phone and I could send text messages, and I was sending like 5,000 text messages a month.
That cost you a lot of money at that point.
Right. But and who would you send? Who you have 5,000 things to say? You're out of your mind, like that's ridiculous. And it is, I think the being able to connect with people is in a lot of ways why my career has taken off and done what I've done without the educational background or even the solid understanding of the technology that we'd work through, because it wasn't about it did what it did. It's an input output, does what it does, period. It either works or it doesn't. It's either online or it's not online, and that's really easy to communicate. Everything else is about, even with technology, the software that we have, it's not about the software, it's about the people who are using the software. So get to know those customers, get to know those people. If you do, then it's really easy to say, oh, we have this technology, we have this thing that solves this problem. And I kind of tackle, self-mastery, right? As we talk about that, that's how I see a lot of things too, is I seek stories to find relatable experiences to validate what I'm trying to accomplish, right? So if I can talk to two people, like you put something out, 50 people can tell you that's the worst thing ever. And it's really easy to be like, oh man, that was terrible. But there's also 7 billion people with 7 billion perspectives, right? And so the idea is that you start talking to people, you start hearing more stories. Someone's just no or just direct answer. There's so much that's behind that no, that it's not a no, it's a story behind all of the no. It's a story behind the bad response, right? It could be, like I driving down the road and someone cuts you off. So the next person asks you a question, it doesn't matter. No, I don't care who you are. Right? I just had a bad day. So now you're asking me a question. I don't have the time to put the energy into it. But that story is the piece that answers that for you. So that's what I kind of look for. And I bring that all into business and kind of all the aspects of my life.
So how do you coach the current staff that you have to be more of that and be more people focused to then produce results?
I think part of it, I would turn around and go through and say by example, right? And there's plenty of times where that example has failed. But as I take over a team or I take over a new task and responsibility, in a way it's giving back, right? But because I'm trying to seek and understand who they are without trying to dictate what happens, even though as a boss my job is to dictate the flow of how the department runs. I then just encourage it. How you've run things in the past. I don't know how you've accomplished things in the past, but here's how I'd like you to try. Let's try accomplishing it this way. Just take 15 minutes and listen. Like, when was the last time that you picked up the phone? When was the last time that you had an employee that felt comfortable calling you because they had a flat tire?
Hmm.
And and I use the friend analogy all the time at work. Is a random stranger could pick up the phone and call you and say, "Hey, I have a flat tire. I need you to drop what you're doing and come help me out." You'd be like, "Don't know who you are. I
Like,
have my own life to live. Why are you calling me? How did you even get my number? Like, what? Oh, I talked to Bob. We talked to Frank, and your number was posted on a wall. All right, cool." But if your friend calls you, you're gonna turn around and you're gonna go try to find a way to help them because there's things that are less important, right? And so I try to instill that and use those stories to go through and explain, like, this is what I expect, because if you lead people this way, that's leading people with kindness, leading with openness, and that is what opens doors. That's what changes the entire mood and mindset for everybody. And sometimes, it takes years of practice, I guess, and sometimes it's a little bit more natural. But it's telling stories and bringing people in and just asking those questions, like, "Hey, how's your day?" We had an
yeah.
employee today. He walked into my office, said hello. I'm like, "Hey, come on in, have a seat." He's like, "Oh, what's going on? How's your day? What's up?" "Oh, well," and then we got onto a long conversation. His brother just got down here. His brother's a Marine. He's telling me he's got 4 brothers, and it just I learned a lot in
So
15
cool.
minutes. And got talking about when his brother was deployed to Afghanistan and where it was. And so it's that person again leaves feeling heard instead of feeling shut down. And so they carry that on to the next interaction and the next
Hmm.
interaction. And that's my hope, right? And that's what I push and I kind of teach, and it's more of the time and examples where almost always it'll be I'll get that message from a manager, from a supervisor, a director that reports to me that says, "I got it, I get it, I see, yeah, your stories annoy the hell out of me, but okay, yeah, no, 100%, I can see the total difference in how everybody behaves and acts now because people are feeling heard and they're feeling valued." And then it's get to work, then it's
And
here's the
out with the whip.
project that we've got. Yeah, now here's the project that we've got. How do we knock it out of the park? And everybody's engaged, not just because they're engaged with the company, but they're also
Mm.
engaged with the team. And I'll throw all that back to military, right?
Hmm.
The military, you go, it's about your team, it's about the squad, it's about the group, it's who you train with, it's and who you're protecting the people around you. And it can be kind of the same, not that work is the enemy, but that the projects are there to overcome.
Hmm.
And doing everything, many hands make light work, right? So if everyone's rowing in the same direction, all these cliche things to say, I think the way that we truly get there is through stories and through that communication.
You got to be a good person. You got to be able to people with other people. And
Right.
I love that you've always been able to do that. I actually had a conversation with somebody yesterday who I haven't talked to in, I don't know, 7, 8 years, something like that. We used to work together at a company years ago. And I remember when he left the company, the owner of the company was sitting right next to him and like hounding him about something, just being a dick about like all things. And this guy at one point said something in Spanish and up and walked out. He is by no means Spanish at all. He's whiter than I am. And he just stood up, said something in Spanish that was basically like, fuck this, I don't need this bullshit, and walked out.
I'm out.
Yeah, so when we were talking about it, I was like, man, every once in a while that pops into my head. And he was like, I just remember thinking how much of a jerk he was. Like, this is what the guy was saying about our boss and the owner at the time, and how he just didn't care about us at all. And that was the point to it. The fact that he felt as an employee that the owner didn't care about him at all, just told him that none of it mattered. If he had a feeling that, look, I care about you at least a little bit, then maybe some of it would have mattered. But the fact that he didn't, he said in that moment, he was like, I just realized that and thought, well, I don't need this shit, and just walked out. And I'm sitting in the cube next to him watching all of this being like, and there he goes. All right.
Are you taking a break or are you coming back, sir?
You're going to be back soon. And then I could see him in the courtyard walking out, just flipping me off. Maybe that was to somebody else. No, I'm kidding. But the fact that you love on people and that you care about people is the reason why you get so much out of people. I saw it with the team that you led when you worked with us before, where those people actually cared and they had more respect for themselves because they knew that they were being respected by the person who led the team. And I've appreciated sitting in some of those meetings. Like I wasn't on your team. I was in another team, but our offices are right next to each other. So it was easy just to like round and be like, hey man, you got 5 minutes of just bullshit. And when people would come in and just to see some of those interactions. So I appreciate that. But Troy, I want to ask you, because I ask everybody that's on the show, what's one piece of advice that you would give somebody that's on their path towards self-mastery?
Oh man. It's a Lion King, right? This is Lion King got it right. More to see than could ever be seen, more to do than could ever be done, right? So the idea of limiting, the idea ever that we have in our minds that, all right, I can't get better at this. I can't achieve this. This is it. This is where it goes, right? Just remember that there's always more to do, more to see, and more to accomplish. And it's just a matter of, that first thought of, I should go say hi, go say hi. Take those opportunities to interact with people, be open to the story and be open to yourself. And as soon as you start listening, kind of to what you have to say, just to your own stories, you kind of that first question, let's talk about where you're from. Oh man. Whew. Now you can really start to think about like, here's this whole world. And you can be like, man, I barely even scratched the surface, right? I talk about 15 states, 3 countries, 60 moves from 18 to 40. And I haven't even come close to I'm so closed in, right? Mm-hmm. So be open and, listen to that idea that there's more to do and there can be. And so if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like nothing's working right, just take a step back and there is more that can be done. There's more that you can do. There's more that you can see. And it's fantastic.
That is good stuff, man. I think it's a great lesson for us all to be mindful of. And that's a clear growth mindset. Because if you're looking at things of how do I learn from it? How do I grow from it? Instead of just the opposite side and being fixed and saying, well, no, it's not for me. I don't want to do these things. It's a matter of taking those steps. So Troy, I appreciate you being on the show today.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time. Appreciate the conversation. It's a good time. Definitely,
man. So tell us, where can people connect with you?
I mean, social media, almost all of my stuff is open, right? So reach out, say hello. Anything on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all that is there. I guess I'm not on Twitter, maybe with the Elon Musk taking over. Maybe it's the time. And then if you're ever in St. Pete or Tampa Bay, look me up, say hello, send a message. Let's go have a drink. Let's go out, have some dinner. Let's go hang out at the beach.
Man, well, even if other people are going to take you up from that, I'm going to take you up on that. At some point, we will go out and have dinner again.
Absolutely. Let's make it happen.
All right, dude. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good one.
Another great conversation on today's episode of the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show. Have you ever heard the term people over profit? Well, Troy really lives this, and I've actually seen it firsthand. Bring in more profit because of the people's passion for their work. They actually care about what they're doing because they were understood. And life is an adventure in whatever way we want it to be. And I think Troy summed up the conversation really well with just be open to it and explore. So let's take this as a challenge to ourselves. Let's be open to learning about others. Be open to truly being interested in others and their stories. And be open to what incredible people with incredible stories are doing in their version of reality. So, what did you think about today's episode? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topics and what we got into. And if you enjoyed the episode, please jump over to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and leave a 5-star review. And if you really enjoyed the show, go ahead and share it with somebody that's close to you. I'm sure they'll really appreciate it. And check out the show notes for more info, contact info for Troy, and check out other episodes on the Mindset and SelfMasteryShow.com, as well as our YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, type in the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show, hit enter, and there you go. And thanks again, Troy, for being real, for being honest and vulnerable with us. And thank you to you for being part of this. And one last thank you, I want to thank our sponsors, the Manly Club and the Powerhouse Men Brotherhood. Men, do you consider yourself to be a powerhouse man? The criteria for becoming one is simple. Live with virtue and do good work. You see, a powerhouse man builds his life. He doesn't settle for it. He attacks mediocrity at the root, and that's exactly what we do in the Powerhouse Men Brotherhood. Visit themanlyclub.com for more details. And with that, remember, your mindset matters, and so do you.